Gentlemen, for coming in. Did you find it a surprise that Ian Foster has not put his hat in the ring to be the next All Blacks coach, JK?
Oh, not at all. I think that behind closed doors, TJ, probably what happened was Fozzie got the feeling that the NZR wanted change. I think the biggest problem that everyone has to ask themselves is, do you want to go now or later? They've made that decision. And if Fozzie had stood, it would have been a hiding to nothing for me. So he's probably made the right decision. He can now concentrate on the World Cup, and if he wins, he's going to be a pretty happy man.
Yeah, there is a sense that he's almost been hounded into making this position about, you know, not carrying on after the World Cup. I think the thing that gets me is that nothing about this reflects well on New Zealand rugby. You look from the leadership of the game for clarity and for a strong sense of direction, and we haven't had that. We've had confusion, we've had speculation, and certainly a lack of clarity about it all. And I think the thing that bothers me the most about it is that this is World Cup year. And whether we or you at home or anyone thinks or doesn't think that Ian Foster is or ever was the best man for the job, the point is, he is the coach going through to the World Cup, and all of this carry-on is not doing him any favours at all in doing the job of trying to bring home another World Cup to New Zealand.
To answer your question, Kirst, does it surprise me? No, it doesn't. And the reason why it doesn't surprise me is because what if he put his name in the hat to get the job and then didn't get it? You know what I mean? Then that just creates a whole lot of doubt and, oh, we're going to the World Cup, but we don't have the right man, do we? So now this is what happens. He's withdrawn from it. He's got 6 months in the job, and we're certainty on that he's got that time. He works off to the World Cup, and hopefully for himself and also for us as a public, he goes out and wins the World Cup, and then he walks away a happy man. And don't forget, there's a human element to it. So good luck, Fozzie. Get stuck in, get the job done, and you'll make plenty of people happy.
Or do we just need to get over ourselves because this is the way professional sport is? The reality is, if you're in football, then, you know, when you're in Italy, they say he's not going to make Christmas if you start to lose. We've just seen Eddie Jones lose his job. We've seen Pivac lose his job. I mean, is this just the way it's going to happen now? So for me, we maybe need to start thinking about, OK, why are we making these decisions? Are we going to see the first All Black coach sacked if it doesn't work out? I mean, it's a pretty nervous place to be.
I think New Zealand rugby are in a bit of a damned if they do, damned if they don't situation regarding the timing of the appointment, because I think, as has been pointed out, they didn't want to lose potential candidates by going late. That happened to them last time. To me, that's not such an urgent need following the two jobs of England and Australia. They were key dominoes, if you like, and this domino effect that they foresaw of perhaps some of the contenders for the All Black jobs being taken elsewhere. Those jobs have been filled now, so I would question whether there was the need to go early, but they've made that decision, and I guess in that, what is it, that 4 to 6 weeks, as the chairman said, or chairperson said, we'll know.
Well, shortly we're going to discuss who could be putting their hat into this ring, the head coaching candidates and the teams that could potentially come with them as well. But first, a man who has been there, done that. He's been the head coach of the All Blacks before in a similar situation. John Hart is with Jeff Wilson.
Well, New Zealand Rugby have announced the process has started to find the next All Black head coach. Why not talk to someone who's been there and done that? John Hart, you're a former All Black coach. When you think about what's happened over the last year, in regards to the players, do you think in any way that might affect their performance this season?
Well, I think there's been a lot of talk about that, and I think it's rhetoric. I think my own view is that the players are totally focused on what's ahead of them right now, Super Rugby, then the international season, then the World Cup obviously is the showpiece of the year. I have no doubt that that's where they are focused. They won't be thinking about next year, though a lot of them have already made their choice about next year. So I don't see any problem with player focus going into this international season.
This is a new era of New Zealand Rugby. You think about it's a new head coach for the All Blacks. What do you think New Zealand Rugby might be or should be looking for?
Well, I think they'll look for someone who can lead them into a new era. I mean, this era from, if you have a look back to through Steve Hansen, through Graham Henry, even through Ian Foster, you've had continuity. I think there's going to be a break with that continuity, so they'll be looking for someone else who can come in, lead, do some things differently, and hopefully, you know, create the environment that the All Blacks can go on and go back to where we want them to be, #1 in the world.
Do you think this is going to be a close race between, it appears as there are two camps, two very strong camps. How thorough do you think this process is going to be?
I have no doubt this process will be done well. I think New Zealand Union are absolutely committed to getting the best option, and I personally think there are two good options, and I think you know, the interview process will be an important part of what each party can bring, what their teams will be, who are the people that they're likely to want as part of it. But I think we're really lucky we've got two choices.
John, just lastly, you've seen the talent and you're in part of the Blues organisation. You know what we've got here in New Zealand Rugby. On the 29th of October this year, the Webb Ellis Trophy is going to be lifted. Do you think we've got enough time and this group of players and coaches can get across the finish line and maybe lift that trophy?
I have no doubt we've got the time. I think you know, we made strides last year. Not everyone will be happy with where we were last year, but I think the introduction of Jason Ryan and Joe Schmidt has been substantial, and I think the team will be very well prepared going into the World Cup. And I think, yes, we've got depth. I'm really excited by what I'm seeing already in Super Rugby. Some of the All Blacks really firing. So I'm excited about the potential, and I think we are a real chance.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Great to get the thoughts of John Hart and Jeff Wilson. We'll be back on the panel next week as well. But there's so many questions about this appointment process. Is it an open process? Have candidates been shoulder tapped already? JK, is this a one-horse race for you? Is this Scott Robertson's job?
No, I don't think it is. My personal opinion is I believe he's committed to New Zealand Rugby, stayed here, won 6 titles. I think he is an amazing leader of a new generation of players. I think you get a good group around him. So I think it's a pretty good choice. If he got it, I'd be absolutely stoked. What do you need when you're selecting, though? If you're the NZR, what do you want? You want the best candidates. And I think Jamie Joseph is also a really good candidate. I think Joe Schmidt might be someone that might think, oh, OK, although he said he wouldn't coach again, he is also a very, very good candidate. And that's maybe someone you'd go to and say, listen, Joe, you should think about it. Because the more options you got, the better. But for me, all the stats, all you look at, maybe they just go straight to saying if you're going to commit to New Zealand Rugby and prove by winning Super Rugby, it's enough.
In the past, they've always wanted someone with international experience, and that's the one thing that Scott Robertson doesn't have. So to appoint him would be a bit of a break from tradition. Look, I think the thing about Jamie Joseph is that he brings Tony Brown with him, an innovative thinker. But then Razor would bring with him Jason Ryan, who's already been part of the setup there. Joe Schmidt's role, I'm not sure that he's interested in the head coaching role. I think he's been a valuable addition to the setup. I'd love to see him stay there, but it really depends on who gets the job, whether or not they can work with him. So to me, the teams that they bring around them is also extremely important here.
Yeah, I agree. It's not just the individual, it's the team that they bring with them and who can put the team. So we know with Jamie, Tony will be with them as well, so that's a good team. Also, I think I'll just pick up on your point, JK, is international experience crucial now? I think if you're current in the game and you know how to coach rugby and you know how to coach players and you know how to set up a game plan and you know how to pull apart another team's game plan, as long as you're relevant in that space there at a high level, I think that's good enough. You know what I mean? And be it Jamie in Japan, be it Joe, done it for years and years, be it Razor down in Christchurch there, or someone else. If you've got those skills and bring a team together, I think that's enough in my opinion.
Let's take a look at the international and domestic achievements from these 3 potential head coaching candidates that we've seen: Joe Schmidt, Scott Robertson, Jamie Joseph. This isn't to say that a smoky could come out of the woodwork, but if you look at this, TJ, who are their teams? Who are these teams you're talking about?
Does it matter? That's what I want to ask. Does it matter?
I think it matters a lot.
Does that matter?
Oh, well, you mean what? Those stats? Yeah, or about who they bring?
No, who they bring I think matters. But if you're going there, DJ, and you sit down, does it really matter that Razor doesn't have international? I don't think it does anymore.
Yeah, all I was saying was that has been a rule of thumb up until now. Maybe it is time to make a break with tradition, do something a little bit more. I have no doubt at the moment that Scott Robertson has the inside running for this job. And you're hearing some stories about who might be involved with them. It's quite interesting, but because they haven't put their hands up and made it official, well, I don't think we'll get into that. But to me, but I still think they have to have a very open and transparent process, and it's really important who makes the decision. Are we going to have a board of advisors, a panel? Or is it just going to be the board that rubber stamps it?
Why do we not have the answer to these questions when there was a press conference the other day, JK? We're still asking these questions.
I think we should just go and ask. Pretty simple.
Lots of questions and not a whole lot of answers at the moment. But Australia have done this in recent months, haven't they? They have brought in a new coach. Eddie Jones will be at the helm for the Rugby World Cup and beyond. He's been in Melbourne watching the action of Super Round, and we put all the hard questions to him.
Look, I think I heard John Kerwin speak on a breakdown, and you know, I admire JK. He's been in the game a long time, and he said, you know, it's not preferable, but it's the way sport is at the moment. People want change quickly. You know, people aren't prepared to wait. You know, we've seen the situation with you know, I've been part of England, Wales, or England being sacked. Wales sacked their coach. Australia sacked their coach. It's not great. No one likes it, but I think that the change in coaches and the need to step forward quickly is inevitable in the way that life is at the moment. So definitely not preferable, not nice, but probably the way it's going to go. I saw Kieran Reid speak about it, and I think he's 100% right, that players move on quite quickly. Initially, there'll be some discussion about it, but as soon as they get into camp and they're focusing on firstly the Rugby Championship, then the Bledisloe Cup and the World Cup, all that distraction will go, and they'll be 100% behind Fozzie, as the players have been, I think, throughout his tenure. I'm not the person to ask for that. You know, I think the great thing about New Zealand rugby, and we've seen that over the last 20 years, is the number of good coaches they produce. So there will be a number of good coaches there in New Zealand to select from. Some of them are in New Zealand at the moment, some of them will be coaching in other teams, and I'm sure the New Zealand Rugby Union will make the right decision.
He was giving absolutely nothing away there. Some will be coaching in New Zealand, Scott Robertson. Others will be coaching other international teams, Jamie Joseph. He's a smart man, isn't he?
I love Eddie Jones, and I think it's great that he's coaching Australia, to be honest with you, because you think about the first test match, that first Bledisloe, you think of the banter that's going to be going around, you know what I mean? He's wonderful at that, and I think he'll bring a bit of theatre to what we do. But he was all right and say that coaching is a high-performance game, you know, and at the end of the day, New Zealand Rugby Union, England, Australia, their job is to win. You know, that's their job. And their role in that is to have the best people available to make sure they win. Then everything else becomes a lot easier.
That's the happiest I've seen Eddie Jones in a long, long time. You think about it, he's back in Australia, he's got the sun on his face, he's got Stephen Jones off his back, and his bank balance is absolutely bulging from the money they had to pay him out at the England Rugby Union.
Two things for me, team. Two things. Both guys, John Hart and Eddie Jones, said there won't be distractions, and I agree. So I think we just forget about that. The players will be focused. The other thing they said is, you know, get the process right. And I think that's really, really important. If you get the process right, you'll get the right person. And like you said, Batesy, any of those choices up there are probably going to be pretty good.